All right, guys, this year the Krueg Show has partnered with Underdog Fantasy. That's right. This football season, Underdog Fantasy gives fans a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long. You can check out their weekly pick 'em players, where you pick between 2 to 5 players and select whether they'll go higher or lower on their game stats. Then you do what you normally spend your Sundays doing, watching the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, but you can win real money. This week, I'm going with Devontae Adams higher than 74.5 receiving yards, Brock Purdy higher than 217.5 passing yards, DeAndre Hopkins higher than 60.5 receiving yards, and Jamal Williams on Monday night higher than 55.5 rushing yards. You can enter the same as me, or you can make your own pick. Sign up using the promo code Krueg, Krueg, and they'll match you up to $100. All right, we're off and rolling on the Krueg Show Friday, right around 11 a.m., quarter to 11. So I got to pick up my kid. We're rolling, though. Jack Hammer in the house, our weekly co-channel extravaganza. And he's with us to talk a little bit about Niners Steelers, Niners Rams, look back, look ahead. Jack, good to see you. How you doing?
To see you. I'm good. Good to see you too, Larry. Friday, let's get this thing rolling.
Let's do it. First of all, give me your takeaway on the Steeler win. I mean, 30-7, great win for the 49ers. A lot of good things happened last weekend.
Yeah, it was a nearly perfect, season opening victory. Obviously it wasn't perfect. There's plenty of things for them to improve upon, but it was a solid win. Come out week one on the road against a Pittsburgh team that's generally very good week one. Mike Tomlin, we talked about it last week, was 10-5-1 going into that thing. And the 49ers go in there and they give the Steelers their worst home loss in the Mike Tomlin era. So, to come away from that, it's easy to see why people are so excited about where the 49ers are right now.
If you were giving one game ball last week, who gets it?
One game ball for last week, I think I would go to either Eric Armstead or Nick Bosa when it comes to just one game ball, because I think those two really wrecked the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense.
That's a good call. I'm going to give my game ball to Ray McLeod. The guy's got a busted wrist. He was supposed to be gone for like 8 weeks. He was gone for like 3 weeks. He's playing with a busted wrist. He's on the far side of the formation on a running play, and the guy runs over 80 yards to get out in front of Christian McCaffrey and throw a couple of nice blocks. And when I asked him about it, he's like, hey, man, that's just what we do here. That to me was, if I was Kyle Shanahan and I wanted to show one clip from week one that kind of showed the rest of the league, my team and my culture and what we've got going here, it would be Ray. I mean, obviously Ayuk had the decleater against KZ earlier in the run, but when you see the receiver on the backside cross the field at a breakneck pace to maybe throw one block, and he throws basically 10 yards worth of blocks at the end and gets him into the end zone. That was huge. I mean, that was absolutely huge. Football, there's no guarantee you're going to score a touchdown there. Who knows? Maybe the next play you throw a pick six the other way. So, getting into the end zone on that play was huge. And it was all effort, all heart from Ray.
Yeah, and it's all across the board, right? Those big runs don't happen unless you get the block down the field from McLeod and the block from Ayuk that you mentioned ahead of that. That's why I love – the big play, the big touchdown throw, everybody gets excited about that. For me, my favorite is the big run, because generally a big run doesn't happen in the NFL unless everybody is doing their job. And you watch that, and you pointed out McLeod way down the field. That's like old school 49ers football too. You go back and watch like the long touchdown runs of Roger Craig back in the day, and you see Jerry Rice and John Taylor downfield blocking for him, or even, the John Taylor touchdowns against the Los Angeles Rams on that Monday night game, where they come back on those 2 90-plus yard touchdowns by Taylor, and you see Jerry Rice both times leading the way down the field for those scores. So that's, just, again, big-time runs, though. That play in particular, Ray McLeod, that's a good one to point out. You already pointed out, Brand Ayuk's block. Also, when you watch that play in the all-22, you see Spencer Burford getting upfield and making a really nice block about 10 yards downfield to cut off a linebacker, knock him out of the play. McCaffrey makes it at the beginning by running into the pile a little bit and spinning off of that and keeps going. So just so many cool things that happen on a big run.
We got this one new channel member, I believe, on Jack's channel. Robert Beilharz has become a new YouTube member. So let's give him a little clap up right there. Welcome aboard, Robert. Okay, so fast forward to week 2. Do you see tomorrow as a trap or Sunday as a trap game for the Niners?
I don't see it as a trap game for the 49ers. I think that they understand how important this game is in particular. A win here puts them up a game over everybody else in the division, especially because 2 of the teams lost last week, both Seattle and Arizona losing. A win here, and they're a game ahead of everybody. Game and a half really over the Rams too because of the tiebreaker. So it puts them in a really good spot. And this is a game. I think it's a for a week 2 game, it's a must win. You've got to get off to a quick start, and you've got to make sure you take advantage of a team who isn't as talented as you. That's I think the biggest thing going into this game.
We get this one, kind of an interesting one in the chat from Robbie439. He says, Larry or Jack, next press conference, can you ask Kyle Shanahan if he's ever reached out to Iowa State's head coach, Matt Campbell, to talk about Brock? I'd love to know if he's ever picked his brain. That would be kind of an interesting one. It's hard to kind of work that one in because everything seems like more topical, and that almost seems like more of a easy breezy, kind of a longer form conversation, but maybe we can squeeze that in to one of the pressers with Kyle, because that would be interesting to hear if he has talked to Campbell and if Campbell has expressed any feelings about either a way to coach Brock or things that Brock does well, or who knows, maybe Campbell would be intimidated by a guy like Shanahan and maybe not make that call at all. Maybe it's on Kyle to reach out to Matt. What do you think?
That's an interesting one because we haven't heard anything from Kyle Shanahan and that type of thing. We've heard from John Lynch, in the conversations that he's had with Matt Campbell in terms of the type of person that Brock Purdy is and what Purdy meant to that program for Iowa State. So we've heard that. But in terms of it coming from Kyle Shanahan, has there been a discussion about maybe, how do you coach him? What are some things that he likes to do and those kind of things? That would, I think, would be an interesting question to ask Kyle.
Yeah, no question about it. One of the things I think's, kind of interesting, I had MJD on this morning, Maurice Jones-Drew, and he kind of provided something that I thought was kind of interesting. Listen to this quote.
He's able to see what the defense is doing and get the ball.
This is MJD. I asked him about Purdy. Well, I'll let you hear this right now. Tell me what you think. Your national perspective on Purdy. What do you think of Purdy from afar?
I think a lot of people, they get enamored by the arm talent of quarterbacks, right? I coach quarterbacks at De La Salle right now, and I always tell my quarterbacks, it's not about your arm talent. Who cares if you can throw the ball 60 yards down the field, 80 yards down the field, if you can't throw it to where it needs to be on time? Well, Brock Purdy's superpower is processing. He's able to see what the defense is doing and get the ball to the right guy 90% of the time. And if you have a guy with those type of weapons around him where he can get the ball to him in space, makes the correct read majority of the time, he's able to process and go out there and make plays, and he's gaining more and more confidence. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the game to me, just off of that aspect alone. I don't care if you can throw it sidearm, off your back foot. None of that matters if you can't throw the ball with timing and anticipation with accuracy. And so that's what Brock Purdy does, and that's what makes him a very dangerous quarterback, because you can do that forever. Because you know who else did that?
Who's that?
You know what other quarterback did that?
Who do you got?
Tom Brady. That's what Tom Brady did. He threw with timing, anticipation, and accuracy.
Yeah.
And that is what had him being the tough to beat for a long time.
Yeah. Good one there. He compared him to Brady. What do you think? I mean, it's an interesting, he to me, he crystallized exactly what Alex Smith said to Mayoko in Tahoe in July, which is that all this talk about height and arm strength and dink and dunk and down the field and this and that, it all comes down to really 3 aspects. Can you process what you see? Can you get the ball out on time? And can you get it out with accuracy on time? And you just heard MJD say it. And I loved MJD this morning, Jack, because he's, one, he's a Bay Area kid who's and what a hustler. I mean, the guy's, he's got a family. He's in LA with the NFL Network. He's doing stuff with the Rams. He's coaching at De La Salle. I mean, he's making the rest of us look like slackers. But I agree also what he said about Purdy. Purdy is an elite processor, and since we cannot see it, and it's all just kind of there, and it's people think of it as an intangible, but when you see it repeatedly week after week, you realize it's not really an intangible. This is a major aspect of playing quarterback in the NFL, how well you process, and he's a very good processor.
He nailed it. And it's something that we've talked about so many different times, and it's right on the money in that everybody gets focused on the big arm, the big size guy, the guy that can run, all those kind of things, and those are the guys that always go at the top of the draft. But there's so much more to playing the quarterback position, and Brock Purdy's got all the other things. He's got enough of an arm to get it to everywhere the 49ers want him to go with the ball. He regularly throws on time. The one thing that Maurice didn't mention that I would have liked him to mention is the ability of Purdy to move people with his eyes. I think that's the other aspect and thing that he does really well that just goes unnoticed. Why are 49ers wide receivers wide open so often over the middle of the field? Well, part of it's because Kyle Shanahan's a hell of a coach and he does a good job of scheming people open. But also when you watch the film and you watch Brock Purdy, he is moving defenders constantly, those underneath linebackers with his eyes. You saw it in the game on the touchdown to Brandon Ayuk, the first one, where he's looking to Debo, actually totally makes it look like he's looking to the left side. That safety moves over right away. Boom, pops back, drills the ball into Ayuk. Did it later on a throw to Debo Samuel over the middle where he just moves the linebacker subtly, comes right back and hits him. He does that kind of stuff all the time. And it's one of those things people just, a lot of people, I think, miss it. It's hard to see unless you're really, really looking for it and know what you're looking for. And I'm not trying to put anybody down with that. I just think you need to understand how much quarterback play has to do with more than just throwing the ball, more than just, the way that you lead the team, but also your ability to help get guys open. And I think he does a really good job of that. And the whole thing, if Brock Purdy was 6'4", 200 whatever pounds, and he had a howitzer, the whole discussion around him would be so much different from a national perspective, from a perspective of a fan perspective. I think that's, people that really follow the NFL, that really get into the film and the coaches and scouts, they know how good he is. I think just based off of what they're seeing.
Golden Red 89, new channel member. They always get a little clap there. Golden Red 89 became a new YouTube member, I believe, of the Jack Hammer extravaganza. Who do you think is going off in this game? And if you want to think about it for a second, I like Debo here. The Rams never have a solution for Debo. Debo's averaged 130 total yards in his last 4 games against the Rams. And I think, after watching Ayuk go off in week 1, I think Debo's going to go off here in week 2. I think he eclipses, 130, maybe goes over north of 150 in total yards. I think it's a big Debo week 2. Who's your pick to click this weekend?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. I do like the Debo because he does a very good job against the Rams. He just makes plays, runs through them. They can't tackle him, it seems like. So I would say Debo is one of those. I would also lean towards George Kittle. Kittle had a little bit of a quiet game against the Steelers, but I think against the Rams linebackers, they're going to find ways to get him open against that linebacker group and the safeties. He's had some really good games against the Rams. They seem to be able to get him open. And as long as they do a good job on Aaron Donald, I would expect some shots to George Kittle down the field in this one.
In fact, Kittle had a great line yesterday talking about Kyle. He says it's like Madden now for Kyle. Like he can make up whatever he wants to make up. Who do you want to take away? Like last week with the Steelers, they had Minka Fitzpatrick. They had him following me around the field. It's like, who is Kyle going to take away from the Rams? The Niners have done quietly a pretty good job on Aaron Donald. And Brunskill was a big part of that. When I was talking to Brendel this week about Aaron Donald, he's like, man, he doesn't give you much of a strike zone. You know what I mean? When you're trying to block him, you got to get him right in a certain spot, and he's a hard guy to kind of pin down. This is another one. I'm gonna do another one here. I don't often do the double shared screen, but I asked Forster this yesterday, and I think he gave me what I thought was an incredible answer. Here's Forster yesterday down at the Niner complex when I asked him a little bit about Jake Brendel, what he had told me, and also about Aaron Donald.
Chris, I was talking to Brendel yesterday. He said that what makes Donald so hard to block is that he's small but strong and fast, so he doesn't give you a big target. You guys have had some success against him. How would you describe him? What makes him the special player that he is in your mind?
Jake nailed it. I mean, he's a guy that's by no means, he's hard to get your hands on, which that's the key to protection. If you can get your hands on a guy and keep him on a guy. You have a guy like Aldon Smith, who was tall and linear and slippery. You just could never get your hands on him, right? This guy's shorter and stockier and hard to get your hands on. What's funny is you can put together a highlight reel of some players that you probably wouldn't know who they were blocking him at times, because when you do the right things against Aaron, he is a smaller guy, but getting your hands to that spot are almost impossible, and he makes it impossible to do it. Even when you do, he has the counter moves to take it off of him. So he's just got a complete package. There's just not a lot of surface to hit, and he's so strong and so low to the ground that once he gets an edge, once he gets something on you, you don't recover from it. It's over. It's over when it's over. And so you've got to make sure you make it not be over as long as it can be.
That's a great line. It's over when it's over. But I mean, it is interesting in that you can't. There's not a lot of room to put your hands on the guy, and he's so powerful, and he plays with such leverage, and he's so strong and so fast. It's a huge challenge, but the Niners, I don't know if it's Brunskill or if it's Forster, if it's their plan. MJD's like, hey, you know what they're gonna do here? I know exactly what they're gonna do. They're gonna pretend like they're gonna run at him, and then they're gonna toss away from him, and they're gonna make him pursue on the backside. And then he said they're gonna mix it up on him. What do you think? I mean, Donald truly is their dominant player in the front seven. He's probably the greatest defensive tackle in the history of football. What do you think? Is Burford up to the task? It's going to be largely on Burford to be able to slow down Aaron Donald.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup because of the size. Like he said, he's shorter, he's stalker. He's kind of like Javon Hargrave in that way. Hargrave's not the biggest dude in terms of height. So if they keep their pad level down, it's really hard to get your hands anywhere because you can't get into their chest because they're so low. And that just makes them so good. So I think against the 49ers, part of the reason they've had so much success with Donald over these last couple of years is really their scheme, and that they've gone away from him in terms of a lot of screens, a lot of quick throws to really negate his ability to get after you and let him try to chase you down. But we're gonna get the ball out of our hands quick. And the other thing is too, if he's on the right side against the 49ers over Spencer Burford in the run game, that's an advantage for the 49ers because their best running happens when they go to the left side behind Aaron Banks and Trent Williams. So I think that's partly why it works so good for the 49ers. And I don't expect them to have a heavy drop back play action game early on. I would expect it to be very similar to what we saw last week against Pittsburgh. A lot of quick throws, get the ball out of your hands quick from Brock Purdy. Get the ball out, maybe a little more screen action with the receivers with Deebo Samuel than what we saw last week. And then once you get into the flow of the game and you can kind of get a little bit of a feel for them, then maybe that's where you take the shot, start working the ball down the field. But I wouldn't expect too many deep balls on them. I would expect most of it to be like last week in that 15, 20-yard range.
I'm going to need your deciphering skills. In college, we used to drink Lucky Lager. And then somebody would throw you one of those caps, and then you'd have to sit there and decipher the cap. And I was never good at it. Jack, I'm going to need you here for 69ers comment. He says, is BD up there with SY8 or SYB Is that SY8?
It's he. I think he messed up here because I think he means to say is BP, but what he's asking is
Brock Purdy up there with
Steve Young and Joe Montana if he wins.
Steve Young and Joe Montana. Oh my God, that you really could play with the Lucky Logger. You'd be all over the Lucky Logger caps. So you got the BD and you threw out the D and saw it as a Brock Purdy, which you're right, up there with Steve Young 8 and Joe Montana 16 if he wins it all. I'll let you go first.
I got the Purdy Express starting to roll through town, so we're going to hear the train here in a minute. People are already asking for the train, so we're going to hear that in just a second. I think, obviously.
Jack's coming to us from Disneyland, by the way, everybody, where the train comes by every hour,
15 minutes. When you look at this, I think, if he can win a Super Bowl, he's up there with him. Steve Young won one Super Bowl in his time with the 49ers as a starter, so he'd match him there. Joe Montana won 4. He's not there yet, but I think it starts to get him into that same discussion. We're already hearing people talk about it anyway, but it puts it in terms of the 49ers pantheon of quarterbacks. Yeah, it puts him right behind those two.
I will guarantee it. It's September 15th, 2023. Brock Purdy will win a Super Bowl for the 49ers. You heard it here first on September 15th of 2023. I feel that confident. He will win a Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan and with the 49ers. But then will he be replacing Joe Montana? No. There's only one Joe. But I do agree that with Jack that, Young got the 1. If Purdy gets 1, he'll be in the Young category. But it's going to take multiples to reach Joe. And Joe's in his own category as far as I'm concerned. Frank Tom Ocean said, thoughts on a Kyle Pitts trade, Kittle replacement. Is there a rumor of that? I haven't heard of that. But I love Kyle Pitts. He's a great, great player. He's a gigantic tight end who's, a terrific receiver, probably the best tight end in football if you flex him outside the tackle box. I have never heard even rumor of it, but it would be intriguing. Well, what do you think of Kyle Pitts? Would you would you make a play with the Falcons to try to get Kyle Pitts?
I wouldn't. Not with a player. I don't think the 49ers have a player that they could use to get Kyle Pitts that they'd want to get rid of. So that's the only reason why I would say no to that. I love Kyle Pitts as a prospect. I think as a receiver. He has, some traits that really work well with the 49ers and would fit here. I thought that in the run up to the draft, the year that he came out as well. I just don't think that they have the arsenal to go out and do it without giving up a player that's too valuable to them right now.
Jimbo says, Lucky Logger, LOL. Remember it well, Larry. Had a case one time. Woo. Yeah. I mean, the beer was ass, but the caps were fun. It's kind of like Mickey's Big Mouth. Have you ever had a Mickey's Big Mouth?
Yes, I have.
I mean, it's not one of the greatest beers of all time. It's like I forget what beer it was in college, but there was a beer whose slogan was "It's the one when you're drinking more than one." And I forget exactly. That might have been an Old Milwaukee's Best. I forget, but that's a great slogan. It's the one when you're drinking more than one. In other words, if you're going to get shit-faced drunk on something, go drink this, and you can drink it a lot. Patrick Seeley says, our beer was called Olympia. Oh, I remember Olympia.
I remember that one, too.
We're talking about cheap beer now. Cheap beer on line 1. Now, I see your Olympia, and I raise you a Natty Light. Thank you. Thank you. Nothing was better when you went to like the place to get the keg of a Natty Light. The guy's like, you want a keg of this, huh? Yeah, we do. Because it's the only keg we can afford. And we don't want the Coors Light party ball. We're having more people over than that. We're going to need more beer than that.
Oh, yes.
Pure Dub says Mickey's and PBR. PBR?
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Oh, Pabst Blue Ribbon. Oh, man, that's ass, too. That was bad. And do you guys remember Stroh's? Remember Alex, the dog from Stroh's? Those are good commercials. All right. What do you what'd you think of Jake Moody week 1? I had a chance to sit down with him in the locker room this week. I like him, man. I really like him. He's grounded. He says he's got Robbie Gold on speed dial. He said that one of the kind of interesting little things that helped him going into week 1 was the fact that he had Matthew Wright, who was a former Steeler and had experience kicking at Heinz Field, to talk to him about he said the big difference kicking at Heinz Field compared to other fields is not the wind, it's the surface. And he said that Matthew Wright talked to him a lot about the surface. And I just think it's kind of cool that the Niners had an option there. They brought in Wright. Wright had kicked for the Steelers. He had some experience there. And Moody said it helped him to have Wright to kind of, bounce some ideas off of going into that first game. But I like how Moody's grounded. He's very grounded. I said, your nickname's Money. Where'd you get that? And he's like, well, I try to downplay that because, it's like I got to make that a reality every kick. I got to make that nickname stand out.
Yeah, Moody came right on, right? There's been a lot of hand-wringing over Moody because of the misses in the preseason. He came out here on Sunday and hit all 6 of his kicks. I think maybe, put a little bit of that to rest. I think, the fact that he wasn't doing kickoffs might have helped that out a little bit too, give him a little bit of ability just to focus on one job for that game. It was good to see him get it turned around. I loved your interview with him. I was in the locker room watching you do that, and he's just sitting in the stool, didn't stand up for you. So you're videoing him from above, but it was a good one. And I think when you look at Moody, at least for week one, he did everything the 49ers wanted him to do in terms of why they went and made the pick to bring him in.
Yeah. The guy's got a boomer leg, and you know what? The last time the Niners won the Super Bowl, they had a rookie kicker. 69ers says, do the 49ers have the best roster in all of sports? Well, that there might be an NHL roster that's super loaded. The Braves in baseball seem pretty loaded right now.
Yeah, the Braves are up there. I think in all of sports, I think that's a tough one. When you get to the NFL, I think it's if you want to just stick to the NFL, it's one or two. It's one of the best rosters in the league. People said that last year. Remember last year before the season started, the 49ers roster was voted as the top roster in the league. The only reason that there's the only question was around the quarterback spot. And you look at it coming into this year, they didn't really lose anything from that team in terms of starters, a couple of guys, but those were guys that they could replace type of guys. And so they coming into this year, it was clear that they were right back there in terms of one of the best rosters. And the only question was if Purdy was going to be healthy or not. And he's healthy. We've seen that. And so there shouldn't be any real surprise to what we've seen so far.
Russell James, this is another lucky logger, but Russell James says, I think he's saying super chat money for calling 49ers Super Bowl win with Purdy. I call that 2.
Yeah.
So he's basically saying he says Purdy's gonna win in 2. You would swear people were paying for the letters. It's like,
it's fantastic. I like it. It's a whole new game we can play.
Yeah. Can Larry figure out what the fuck I'm trying to say?
Exactly.
It's all my lucky logger experience. Flav in the house says, have either of you had Moose Drool? MT beer? Is that Moosehead? I've had Moosehead.
I have no idea what that is. I have not had.
I've never had Moose Drool, but Moosehead. Jack, if you're calling your shot, you're at the bar, you can have any beer that you want. What are you going with?
See, I'm not a huge beer guy. I can manage the flavor of beer, but I'm just not a. So you go to a bar. This might be a better question. You walk into a bar, you can have anything you want. You can have a glass of wine. You can have a beer. You can have them make you a mixed drink. You can have a shot. It's Jack Hammer. You call it night. By the way, 2 drink minimum. Tip your waitresses. I'll drink $7.95. I'm usually going to be. I'm usually more of a rum and Coke or a Jack and Coke kind of guy. Over beer. If I'm going to drink a beer type of thing, it's usually going to be something like an Angry Orchard, which my friends always give me grief over, and I always remind them, hey, this thing has a stronger alcohol content than your beer over there, so don't give me it just tastes better than yours. That's all.
I like a good. My favorite one is a Pliny. Have you had a Pliny the Elder?
No, and I've heard a lot about that. Maybe I need to go out there and try to expand my horizons a little bit here.
Yeah, seriously, Tolbert turned me on to Pliny the Elder. I was kind of a kind of a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale guy. I like the Sierra Nevada, but then the Sierra Nevada is a little bit. I don't know. It's not quite as smooth as a Pliny the Elder. Pliny the Elder is a little bit more like Sam Adams. Have you had a Sam Adams?
Nah, see, that's what I'm saying. I've usually just I had probably cheap beer in the beginning when I was younger, didn't really like it. So that's why I've always,
You're Jack and Coke. I'm Jack Hammer. Give me a Jack and Coke.
Yeah. Or give me a shot of tequila. Either one. I'm good with all that kind of stuff. My brother and I went to, I probably shouldn't even say this, but the 1992 NFC Championship game, my brother takes in a flask of peppermint schnapps in his jacket into the game. Every time
the mouthwash.
Exactly. Every time the 49ers, did something good, it was boop. Yeah. By the end of the game, I was walking sideways to the car. I'll tell you that.
I got a buddy I went to Sac State with who his drink of choice was so embarrassing that we would all say, "Hey, dude, could you go order that away from our table? Don't order it when we're sitting around the table." Because as soon as he would order it, it just immediately everybody was just a barrage of rips. His drink of choice was, he goes, he used to say it this way too: "I'll have a CC," and always the waitress would be like, "And what's that?" And he goes, "Courvoisier and Coke." And we're Courvoisier and Coke. And so we from that point on, we called this guy CC. I forget the guy. I think the guy's name was Rob, and we called him CC. His nickname was CC. Like the rest of college, he'd be like, "Hey, where's CC?" Because every time we went out, "Yeah, I'll have a Courvoisier and Coke." I'm like, "Great, so you can get wired and fall asleep?" I mean, my goodness, Courvoisier and Coke. Get out of here with your Courvoisier. You drink Courvoisier out of a sifter. You drink Coke out of a can. And this guy's going Courvoisier and Coke.
Let's throw them together.
I mean, it sounds bad, and then when you try to order it I'll have a CC. It's like, no, dude, you're an idiot. And the waitress would always be like, "All right, okay, we got a Courvoisier and Coke over here." I'm like, "Dude, you better go up there to the bar and make sure they're pouring Courvoisier. I bet you they're going with something else." And you'd be like, You're right. I'm like, so he'd go up there. Eric Hernandez says Moscow Mules, Tito's and Diet Tito's. Oh my God! So he's going Tito's and Diet Coke. Oh my God, Tito's vodka and Diet Coke.
I would try the Tito's.
That sounds like that's vodka and Coke.
I would try that, but the Diet Coke just ruins it because it's just already flat to begin with.
Joey Nichols goes, Courvoisier is just fancy brandy. Oh, I know. Yeah, you drink it out of a sifter. We used to do shots of that sometimes in high school. We were playing poker. All right, Jack. Who's the number one weapon for the Niners? Is it CMC? Is it Debo? Is it Ayuk? I mean, Ayuk was spectacular in week 1. Would you say he's the number one weapon?
It's a tough one because I really think it just depends on who Kyle Shanahan wants to get the ball to this based on the matchups in any given week, because they can do it with Ayuk. They can do it with Samuel or, Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey had 152 yards rushing on Saturday and on top of it. So, I would say probably, I personally think that Deebo Samuel's the best receiver on the team. That's my thought, especially when you get him the ball down the field. But it's hard to argue against Ayuk with what he was, he had a strong strong last year, but he was even better last week. Open all over the field, eight targets, 8 catches. So it's hard to argue against Ayuk right now. I just think this offense opens up so much for everybody. It's just really dependent on what they're trying to attack in any given week. That's who your top weapons are going to be. Really, they just have so many of them.
Chrissy 1687 says snifter. What did I call it? I don't know what I called it, but I didn't. Maybe I didn't say snifter. How concerned are you, Jack, about Colton McKivitz? And there's a lot of people saying, "Hey, go get Taylor Lewan, go sign Lael Collins, go sign another tackle." I'm not quite there yet. I don't love Jalen Moore and Pryor as the backup tackles. I'd love to see the Niners upgrade to one good tackle instead of two kind of flawed backup tackles. But that's where they're at right now. Leo Collins, if he's healthy, I like a lot, and I would sign him. But that's a big question. I don't know if he's healthy, and it seems like he's not. What do you think? Are you stressed about McKivitz after watching him struggle with T.J. Watt, or is that all just T.J. Watt?
I'm not stressed. Even my dog doesn't like the Colton McKivitz slander. He is very upset. As soon as you started saying that about McKivitz, he started barking in the background. Be quiet.
Really? That's McKivitz's.
No,
that's McKivitz's dog on the hunt. Maybe McKivitz is a hunter. Maybe that's why he's loyal. He's loyal to McKivitz. He's like, I better say good things about McKivitz, or he may come with a crossbow and take me out.
Trust me, this guy is not a hunting dog. He's a good dog, but he's no hunting dog. That's for sure.
He's no hunting dog.
No, not at all. He's way too small for a hunting dog. But no, when you look at it, I think I'm not overly worried about Colton McKivitz. The 49ers have a history of being able to win games with a tackle who maybe not playing at the highest level. You look at it last week. Yes, he gave up 3 sacks. He gave up a couple of hits on top of that. But overall, the Ferns were up 20-0 before he really started to struggle. And you look at across the league, you look at, who are they going to face that's going to give you that kind of matchup against him. The Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles, both two of the top contenders that they're going to have to go against this year if they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. They've already beaten the Cowboys back-to-back years, once with Tom Compton starting at right tackle in Dallas, and then they came back last year with Mike McGlinchey, who some people thought wasn't any good either. So they were still able to win those games, and it's about working everything else around it. I'm more concerned really with Spencer Burford than I am Colton McKivitz. I thought Burford, he's really struggled in that game in pass protection, had a couple of bad penalties as well. So if I was going to point to an offensive lineman that I'm concerned with, I would say it's more at right guard with Burford than with McKivitz. I think he'll be fine. I think it's just a matter. The other thing that I think people forget is that was his first start at right tackle. That's his first time ever starting at right tackle in the NFL. So it's going to take a little bit of time. I think they'll be fine. I think as this season rolls along, he's going to improve. I don't expect to see him give up 3 sacks week in and week out.
Chrissy says, you said sifter. No biggie. It's funny. So it's snifter, and I said sifter. Palem says, pass the court, Vassier. G2 the universe says, Remy on the rocks or a shot with Coke on the side. Excuse me, I'll have a Remy shot and a Coke chaser. Thank you.
This is a great show. I'm going to learn all the stuff. When we get together, Larry, and we end up at a bar at the Levi Stadium bar after week 18, we can go through this list and order one of all.
When the Niners go to the Super Bowl and we're hanging out in Vegas for an entire week, we'll have to do it up one night big, and we'll just go. We'll go all throughout the strip, and I'll order my drink that I normally order. I'll go Stoli Greyhounds if it's like any kind of morning drinking. Like if I'm drinking in the morning, give me a Stoli Greyhound, like a really good grapefruit juice with a ton of Stoli vodka. That usually does me right. My wife's more of like a glass of red wine person. I'll have a glass of red wine. So we'll go out for dinner. She'll be like, I'll have a glass of red wine. She sounds all refined. I'm like, yeah, I'll get a Stoli Greyhound. The guy's like, oh, okay. Sir, we don't have Stoli. Would you take Grey Goose? I'm like, yeah, possibly.
There you go.
But it's going to cost you. Okay. Bosa. Nick Bosa says that the 2022 Niner D-line is better than the 2019 Niner D-line that he was also on that went to the Super Bowl. So what do you think? The 2019 Niner D-line was Bosa, Armstead, DeForest Buckner, and D. Ford. The current D-line is Hargrave and Drake Jackson and Armstead and Bosa. What's the better line, 19 or 22 or 23, I should say?
That's a great question, because I can understand why he would say that. I think it's a little bit different, in that 3 of those guys are very similar. Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, they're all very similar. You get over to the side opposite of Bosa, and I think that's where it changes. And it depends on, I think with the rotation opposite of Bosa, this line could be better because, they when you look back at that 2019 team, D. Ford was a liability in the run game. He wasn't the guy that if teams weren't going to worry about running at him. This year, now the 49ers have Clelin Ferrell and they have Drake Jackson, and those two guys together combined opposite of Bosa really give you a good 1-2 punch, because Ferrell is tremendous against the run, can also get after the quarterback a little bit. And then you bring in Drake Jackson, who isn't necessarily always going to win by himself, but because of the pressure that everybody else is giving him, is helping out. He's a guy that can really close. And so that's where his sacks come from. We saw that with 2 of his sacks the other day. Also, there was another sack. I think it might have been the 3rd sack of the day for Drake Jackson. You watch that sack, and this is where that whole group, and this is why like the concerns that we had over the offseason about Bosa not being here, where they showed up, because that 3rd sack that Jackson was able to pick up, you watch that play unfold, from behind on the all-22, and you see 3 linemen or 3 people from that offensive front for Pittsburgh all have their eyes on Nick Bosa, while everybody else is working one-on-one matchups. And that's where you get the rush on the little loop from Drake Jackson right up the middle for the sack. And so, I think as a group, this defensive line might be better. Maybe not necessarily the front line players, but this group, I think overall can be better.
I haven't had a chance to talk to Drake Jackson since his week 1 deal for very long. I talked to him at his locker for a minute yesterday because the period was over and I didn't have a chance to do an interview with him. But I just said, hey, man, great game Sunday. Keep it rolling. He's like, thanks, Krueg. And I'll say this. I think his game plan is real simple. Find the ball, keep the motor running fast. That's really it. If he finds the ball and plays his ass off, he's going to run into a sack or 2 a game, because Hargrave's getting doubled, Bosa's getting doubled, Armstead gets a lot done, the linebackers are fast, the quarterback, and the Niners play so many games, so many stunts and twists and games up front that a lot of times, the quarterback is moving, to the left. Like we saw in one of those sacks, he was moving to the left and the guy was blocking Jackson to the right, and as soon as he located the quarterback, he just came right off and sacked Pickett. And it's like, I think if he can just find the ball and keep that motor churning, I think 10, 12 sacks is going to be the deal this year for Drake. I think those are the 2 key factors. Just there'll be quarterbacks falling into his lap if he just keeps his eyes open and keep the legs churning.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I could see 10, I could see at least 10, because he's already has 3. I could see 7 over the next 16 weeks, exactly with what you're saying. He's so quick. That's the thing. He's extremely quick, and he can get to the guy. He just might not win on his own, but he's going to get there. And I like the way you put it. Just keep your eyes up, just keep working. And the rest of those guys are going to create opportunities for you if you're not able to get there on your own. I think that's exactly who he is.
And, it's like a lot of defensive ends. You got to beat the guy in front of you, with your initial move. He really doesn't. He doesn't have to win with his initial move. Just keep working to the quarterback and find the ball, and he's going to have a bunch of sacks. What do you think of the usage at the slot? I mean, they played Demo in the slot initially, and then in the second half, they went to Oliver in the slot. And when Mayoko asked Shanahan about it, he's like, well, go watch the film and you can see for yourself why we did it. I've watched this game 4 times now. All I saw was that Freiermuth went out and they went to that gigantic tight end. Do you think that had something to do with it? I really don't know. I mean, what was your read on the usage of Demo in the slot in the first half, Oliver in the slot in the second half? When Steve Wilkes was asked about it, he said, that's not necessarily the plan, but that's how the game evolved. What did you see, and how would you explain if the Niners have a philosophy with their slot corner?
Well, that could definitely be a part of it, because that's something that I believe it was Steve Wilkes who mentioned that a few weeks ago when he was asked about what the plan is in the slot. He talked about, it being a matchup position. And depending on who was in that position, who was there, who they were going to have to work against, you might have a different guy playing in there. If it was a bigger guy, it might be more of Isaiah Oliver. If it was a little quick, shiftier guy, you would see probably more of Diameter Lenore because he's a little bit shiftier himself. So, the fact that the tight end went out and they had a bigger guy inside could have played a role in it. Plus, they also lost I think it was Johnson went down with a leg injury. So just kind of changed what the Steelers were doing. I know that some folks, looked at the film and felt like Ambry Thomas struggled. I didn't see that. I thought, I know that he gave up a lot of catches underneath, but I thought while watching the film, it seemed to me at least that the cushion that he was giving on his side matched what was happening on the other, and that they were just playing soft coverage, trying to keep everything in front of them and not allow a quick score there at the end. And then they figured they'd get tight, and it just didn't quite work out for them. So I don't think that Ambry Thomas necessarily did anything wrong. I think that this is one of the biggest matchups of the game this week, though, because they're going up against the Rams team, which really lives and dies by what they do at the slot, with whether it was Cooper Kupp, who's not able to play, or now Puka Nacua or Tutu Atwell. They were very good from the slot against the Seattle Seahawks. And if the 49ers don't get to Matthew Stafford, I could see that being a matchup that really could favor the Rams if the 49ers don't have that figured out.
I asked Steve Wilkes yesterday or whatever it was, I think it was yesterday, about the differences in defending Nacua versus Atwell. Nacua, you got to be right up on him because anytime he's open, he's going to catch it. And he's probably even going to catch it in a crowd. He's got great ball skills, and he can't run by you. So you got to snuff him out like a candle. You got to be draped all over him. You got to make him feel your presence. Atwell, on the other hand, is a burner. I mean, he's a ridiculous burner. He might be the fastest guy in the league. He's 166 pounds. He doesn't weigh a whole lot. But you got to give him proper space, because otherwise he could take it to the house on you. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see the Niners defend on third down. Because if the Rams do in this game what they did in the last game, they got conservative on first and second down. They stayed with the run. They ran it 40 times. They got to manageable third downs, and they just put the ball in Stafford's hand and said, go figure it out, big boy. And he, even without Cooper Kupp, kept playing pitch and catch with Nacua, and he made some big plays to Atwell. But to me, Nakua's banged up now going into this game. But how the Niners defend those two guys, I think, is going to determine how this game goes. And you can't let Atwell get loose for 6. I added him on my fantasy team because I really believe he's going to have some good weeks here. And then Nakua's not 100%. Hopefully he won't play. But if he does play, man, they got to figure out a way to make him feel their pressure and their coverage. And when I asked Wilkes about it, he kind of downplayed the different approaches to defending the different slots and said that it's really much more in his mind about what they get done up front and bothering Stafford. How do you see that?
Well, I agree that that's a big piece of this as well, is that defensive front has to get after the quarterback. Stafford was clean so much on Sunday. The Seattle wasn't even able to get around him. I think it was only hit 5 times in that game, I think was the number. So he was rarely even touched against Seattle last week. The 49ers, they have to be able to get pressure on this guy. And they've done it in the past. Last season against the Rams, the 49ers were able to get to him 11 times. They hit him another 8 in those 2 wins. So they've got to get pressure on him. And because if they do, that means that he's going to give them opportunities to take the ball away. He's thrown at least 1 interception in each of the 2. Well, let's take that back. In terms of Stafford, he's thrown an interception that's been a pick 6 in the first game against the 49ers in both of the last 2 years. The first game in 2021 at Levi Stadium, a pick 6, and then last year as well. So I think if the 49ers can get pressure on him, he's going to put the ball where somebody can get the interception, and that's huge. And I think that Wilkes was on the money there in terms of where he was going with that.
What do you think of, one of the questions that came up repeatedly in the aftermath of this one is Kyle didn't get, his talent off the field fast enough. They beat the Steelers 30-7, and there was still McCaffrey in the fourth quarter. And they should have gotten him off the field. And Kyle was asked about his philosophy this week about getting guys off the field. And he was kind of candid, and he said, hey, it's an open dialogue in our headsets about, in the fourth quarter of these games, hey, when's the right time to pull guys off the field? I just get the sense that there's some scarring from that Detroit, game a couple years ago in week 1, when it was like 41-17, and then it was like within a touchdown on the last play of the game. And then, of course, Shanahan, has Super Bowl issues of not being able to finish out a 28-3 lead when he was the OC in Atlanta. What do you think as far? I mean, so he's got that on the brain as well. I mean, how do you did Shanahan go too long with CMC? Should Elijah Mitchell have gotten more run? What'd you think of his philosophy to kind of stay with CMC late in the game?
Yeah, they're up 20. That game was over. It was over the minute that Christian McCaffrey went the distance, and you could just feel it in watching it on TV. You could feel it, and I think the people in the stadium could feel it too. I would have liked to have seen more of Mitchell and more of Jordan Mason in the second half. I agree with Shanahan, and from the point that you can't you can't take McCaffrey out, and then if things get tight, then put him back in. That just as an injury waiting to happen, to have guys cool down and then put them back in the game. But I just think you needed to do a better job of mixing those other guys in and getting them carries on first and second down, because that's really what they started doing after that opening drive. It was pretty much after that. It was, for the most part, it was run, pass the rest of the game. I would have liked to have seen a little bit, if anything, it says that maybe they're a little down on Jordan Mason, because Jordan Mason last year in those situations was the closer. He'd come in the fourth quarter and he would take the air out of the ball for him. And he had some problems in the offseason with holding onto the ball during training camp in the preseason. And I don't know if he even got the ball at all on Sunday against Pittsburgh. So I do think that 22 carries is too much for Christian McCaffrey, that they have to start to pare that back. It's a long season. He didn't carry the ball at all during the preseason. So a couple of hits here, but I'd like to see them start to roll that back a little bit as this season goes along.
A couple last ones before we call it quits. Steve Wilkes was interesting in this game. I think we're all kind of anticipating Wilkes is going to blitz more than D'Amico did. He only blitzed Pickett 10 times on 52 dropbacks, only 19.2%. The Niners, by the way, on defense played 63 snaps, 56 in the nickel, 7 in the base. So it was basically 90% nickel in the Pittsburgh game, 10% in the base, largely because of the way the Steelers were going about things with their personnel on offense. But what do you think? He blitzed Pickett early in the game, but the total blitz totals look smaller, or he blitzed a lower percentage than I thought he would do. What do you expect in this game? Because Stafford is a veteran. It's one thing to blitz Kenny Pickett, in early in his career. It's a totally different thing to blitz Stafford, who's got a ring and has got a phenomenal release. He's got a howitzer of an arm, one of the best gunslingers in the game. Do you think we're going to see Wilkes blitz a lot more than he blitzed in week one, and we just didn't see it in week one? Do you think he will blitz Stafford and give him defined reads, or do you think, they'll give Stafford a little bit of their own medicine? I mean, they dropped 8 into coverage against Geno and kind of confused him on a lot of third downs. Will the Niners try to do the same to Stafford, kind of the opposite of the blitz? Flood the coverage with defenders and make him be accurate.
Yeah, I think the sack numbers not the sack numbers, excuse me, but the blitz numbers last week were all about the score of that game. If that game was tighter, I think you see them blitz more as the game goes along. So I do think that they're a little bit more of a blitzing team than what they showed in week one. I would also say that, this week against Matthew Stafford, they're going to have to do a better job. If they're going to do it, they've got to get home, because Stafford's going to make them pay. There were throws to be had. Even Kyle Shanahan mentioned that there were times there was busts in coverage, and it was just a matter of the quarterback not getting it there a few times early in that game. I really think that they need to be able to, if they're going to bring extra pressure, they've got to get home on Stafford. Otherwise, you play 4, you go rush 4, drop 7, and I think you really could confuse them there. That's what they did last year in the game down to Los Angeles in the second half. When they had struggled in the first half, they came out in the second. They were much better at getting pressure up front, and they were able to force them into some mistakes, and I really took that game over.
Well, how good is the Niners secondary? And I ask this question because the foursome of Ambry Thomas, Isaiah Oliver, Demo Lenore, and Hufanga on 21 targets gave up 18 catches. Now, some of it is because the Niners played a soft zone almost the entire second half and allowed completions in front of them just to let the clock kind of go by. but how concerned are you? I mean, 21 targets, 18 catches, that's almost no resistance at all. Is that just because of the nature of that week one game, or do you think the Niners may have some problems in the secondary at controlling other teams, opposing passing games?
They're gonna, if they don't get a pass rush, they're gonna have trouble. I think that could be said about any team across the NFL, though. Really, if you don't get pressure on the quarterback, the rules just make it so hard for those guys on the back end to get stops. And the receivers are just so good now. It really plays into their favor. So, I like Charvarius Ward. I think he's a really good player. He's going to struggle with some stuff deep. We saw that last season. Deommodore Lenoir, I think, is really good. Their question right now is in the slot with Oliver or Lenoir, and if they're unhappy with what they're seeing out of Ambry Thomas, and you'll see Oliver be the guy there. The safeties kind of make up that difference too. I think the play of their safeties with both Hufanga and Gibson, they're ball hawks that get the ball taken away, and then you also have that underneath coverage by the linebacker. So you take the secondary as a whole, and you had to kind of throw those guys in there because just the corners and the safeties aren't quite as strong as you'd want them to be.
Couple last questions. Power rankings. All of the Niners after week one as the number one team. Bleacher Report, NBC, Fox, ESPN, NFL.com, all had the Niners atop the power rankings. Are the 49ers, in your mind, the best team in pro football?
They're right there. I don't know if I would say they're the best. I think that if they stay healthy, when all said and done, they're going to be one of the two teams playing in February in Las Vegas, though.
I agree. And is there, the Niners have all this cap room now. Is there, just based on what you've seen in week one, what's the final piece to the puzzle for the Niners? Or is it all predicated on who goes down injury-wise? Is it a pass rusher? Is it another corner? Is it another skill position guy? Is it an offensive lineman? If you could add one piece to this puzzle to get them over the top, what are you adding?
If I could only add one based off of what we saw last week, if there was a tackle out there that could come in and just be a stud at right tackle, I would add that. I just don't think there's one that's out there that they can bring in that's way ahead of what they have right now in Colton McKivitz. Because of that, then maybe it's a move at the trade deadline for a guy like Danielle Hunter to add some pass rush to your defense, even though you already have a pretty good group over there. Man, you got some serious birds going in the background there. Hey, last one, and we appreciate you doing this. We love the Friday time slot with you, Jack. You're fantastic, and everybody needs to join Jack's channel and also read Jack in the Santa Rosa Press-Democrat. He puts out phenomenal content. We're 1 week into the season, and it's funny, it's like the preseason doesn't tell us much. Camp doesn't tell us much. The offseason doesn't tell us much. You don't really start finding out about these teams until the games actually start for real. Give me a team or two that, man, after watching 1 week of football, you're like, hey, I got a lot more respect for that team. That's a team to watch for this year. I got a couple in my mind. Who stands out to you? I think the Lions stood out just how they played against Kansas City. That's they're an aggressive team. I really like their style because they're physical. I like the physicality. Physical nature of football is one of the things that really draws me to it. So I really think that the Lions really stood out with their performance. I think they would be the biggest one, really. Other than that, these along the NFC, I was thinking about this last night. You look at the NFC and how that's shaking up, and it's pretty clear what the pecking order is on the NFC side. The AFC is interesting because all the big three lost week one, right? Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo, all lose week one. And so maybe we're going to see a little bit of jumbling around. All those teams over there, they've all spent big money on their quarterbacks. Maybe we're seeing a little bit of a changing. I know that the Chiefs and the Bengals and the Bills are going to be there in that conference, but maybe we're seeing a little bit of a changing of the guard in terms of in terms of the conferences. Maybe the NFC actually is going to be able to hang with them this season, just because of the amount of money that's being taken up by the quarterbacks. Kind of, has deflated their rosters a little bit.
I'm going two in each conference. I love
Okay.
Detroit's offensive line. Penei Sewell is a monster. I love Green Bay's defense. I think they got good players on all three levels. And I think Green Bay is just a really quality organization. I love the line of scrimmage for the Cleveland Browns. I think they're really good on the O-line and on the D-line, and those teams typically do good things. And I'm really impressed by Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville's defense and all the weapons that they have, the addition of Ridley, the emergence of Lawrence, and the strong left side of their offensive line, the defensive athletes they have, those 4 teams all, to me, look really, really good. Jack, we'll let you go, man. Great stuff. Have a great rest of your Friday. What do you got going on game day?
Game day, I'll be down in Los Angeles for the game, but I'll have a pregame show before. I'll come on afterwards and do a little postgame like I always do. I'll do both of those live in the stadium, and then keep it locked into the channel. There'll probably be another video later today and something tomorrow as well.
You're the man. I love your content, man. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
You too, Larry. Have a good one.
There you go. The great Jack Hammer, Santa Rosa Press Democrat. All right, that is going to do it for us. Let's do first a word from our sponsor. We have a brand new sponsor. It's Jurens. Hey, everyone, it's Larry Krueger with Jurens Distributing Company. For over a half century, Jurens has been the cornerstone of excellence, trusted by Sacramento's finest restaurants, bars, and casinos. But now they're excited to announce that Jurens' exceptional products will be coming directly to you. That's right. Check out their new website, Jurens.com, Jurins.com. Jurens has a vast catalog with everything you need to elevate your kitchen and craft, from premium cocktail mixes to top-notch kitchen essentials that stand up to the rigors of a commercial kitchen. And here's the best part. When you shop at Jurins.com, you enjoy free nationwide shipping. That's right, free shipping. Jurins is able to offer customers best-in-class prices on all their products because they buy directly from the manufacturer and they cut out the middleman. But wait, there's more. For a limited time, get a fantastic 10% off your entire order by using the promo code Krueg, K-R-U-E-G, at checkout. Make sure to check the link in the description and use that promo code Krueg, K-R-U-E-G, at Jurins.com.
So New York style sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
All right, coming down the home stretch on the Krueg Show. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Jack Hammer. One more comment from Funky Freestyler. Larry Krueger, did you go to St. Stephen's for a short bit? No, I went to Stewart Hall. Did not go to St. Stephen's. Played against St. Stephen's. Beat St. Stephen's quite a bit. Enjoyed beating St. Stephen's. But no, I went to Stewart Hall. And that's going to do it. That's going to do it for the show. Hope you enjoyed the Krueg Show. Thanks to Jack. Thanks to MJD earlier. Thanks to all you guys in the chat. Go Niners. We got a big Niner post-game show on Sunday. Join me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for the coach. He'll be stopping by. We'll chop it up and talk a little all things Niners Rams tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. on the West Coast, noon on the East Coast. Until then, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me.